So far on this podcast, we've had a range of voices from campaigners to celebrities to workers themselves. Noticeably, one group of people we haven't had, other than myself, a Green Party of England and Wales politicians. And that's been really purposeful. It's because we know so many people listen to this show. In fact, we're getting 1 million plays a month. And lots of those, I have no doubt, are Green Party members, and lots aren't Green Party members. I don't know why you're not in the Green Party yet, but I'm still really glad you're listening. Thank you. I'm going to level with you. I'm doing everything I can right now to make sure the Green Party win in Gorton and Denton and stop reform. And with a popular podcast, it would be wild to not platform the candidate. And I really do believe that Hannah is so amazing that even if she wasn't a Green Party politician, she'd be a politician that you'd all want to hear from right now. I do want to note, though, that in this conversation, I'm going to talk to her as I would any campaigner. I'm going to ask her questions about herself and her campaign. So here's my colleague and very good friend, Hannah Spencer.
Zack, I'm so excited about this year. Ecotalk has new land coming for rewilding and habitat restoration, and we're bringing back beavers. Any week now, yes. I'm also going to start live streaming the garden birds from my home. And all of this happens because Ecotalk has customers. That's people who pay their mobile phone bills to us. They make a call, they send a text, or they just surf the net, and British wildlife gets a boost. That's it. No shouting. Just go to ecotalk.co.uk/boldpolitics to find out more.
So Hannah, the first Green Party of England and Wales politician we've had on the podcast. I just wanted to be very grand about that. We're actually just mates, so this feels ridiculous. I have come to bring you on to grill you. So the first thing I want to know is, what is your favourite moment from Corrie of all time? I knew this question was going to get you. I was joking about being a grilling.
I knew I was going to get grilled. There's, honestly, so many I could think of, but I think the hello Sinead bit.
This is when my Corrie knowledge isn't good enough.
Probably that hello Sinead. But afterwards I'm going to regret that and I'm going to think of loads of other bits. Yeah, that is actually a really hard question.
That's all right. For anyone who's tuned in and is like, what's happened to Bold Politics? I guess the question I should ask you is, how are you feeling and how's the campaign going?
It's unbelievable. Thank you so much for having me on here. It's just absolutely bananas. I can't believe how much my life has changed in the last couple of weeks, but I also can't believe how much rallying around everyone's done. And I keep saying I can't believe it, but then I look when there's hundreds of people in the park and I think, I can believe it. I can believe that all of these people care about the communities that we live in. So I'm sort of shocked but not shocked at the same time. But at the minute, it's just, it's challenging and it's different, but it's unbelievably exciting. It's
been really interesting watching you take it like a duck to water. Like, as we're recording, we've just come from a muddy park, where there was maybe 400, 500 people there, all chanting your name, all so excited to see you. It really feels like the community, alongside other people who have come from all over the country. How's that feel like? How surreal is it?
It is surreal, but I think there's a lot of us that do things where we're like, this is kind of what life is. Like, a lot of us that do jobs where you're often kind of in the unknown, and it's unlike anything I've ever done before. But I think a lot of us have more skills than we realise for doing stuff like this. And I think it's a really natural thing for anyone to assume, like, oh, I could never do that. I could never be a politician. I don't know about politics. I don't have this background. It's like, but all the skills that you get in life are the exact skills that you need from doing this. Like, this is a leap into the unknown, but so was me training to be a plumber. So was when I trained to be a gas engineer. So is every time I go to a boiler that I've never seen before in my life. Like, you just see what's in front of you and you think, I've got to find a way to do this.
Wait, so you're actually a plumber?
I'm going to set the record straight here and say, yes, I am a plumber. And in fact, I actually saw yesterday one of my plumbing tutors at college who, when we were out and about, came over and was like said hello and stuff. And I thought, this is living proof that, yes, I am a plumber.
I love that. And there's an Instagram post of where you went into the plastering college and what did your classmates, colleagues done for you?
Yeah, so I'd had the day off really kindly from my college tutor, and yeah, they'd made a sign out of a scrap of plasterboard and it said Ministry of Plumbing and Plastering, Hannah Spencer MP, and they were all so proud of it, and I had a big picture next to me and I was just smiling in such a cheesy way, and it was really nice because like there is a lot of shit about me online. A lot of it's very misogynistic, very sexist. Like the idea that a woman couldn't possibly do a job like this is still commonly held by some people, not the majority of people, but a very vocal minority. And so to go into this group of men who are really similar to me, like from a similar background, and just be accepted by them, and not only accepted, but encouraged as well. And for them just to be like, you've got this, you're absolutely going to smash it. It just made my heart burst.
I love that. When did you first become political? Because I've often heard you say, similar to me, you weren't political all your life. Was there a moment where you thought, I need to get involved?
So there was definitely a moment, but there was a lot of moments leading up to it, which I think is the case for a lot of people. And for me, the big moment was during COVID, because it was like everything was in front of my eyes about how quickly we were seeing inequality, which was already a problem, get so much bigger so quickly. The very richest in society were doing incredibly well out of an emergency, and the people who were making the rules were the ones who were breaking the rules. But I also saw this humanity from all the rest of us, where we realised we had to help each other out, and we didn't do everything perfectly and we didn't do everything right all the time, but we did really try and look after each other. And so I just saw this split where I was like, this is what most of us are like, and yet we're being ruled by people who aren't the same as us, who are only there to look after themselves. But leading up to that, a lot of that was when I lived in the constituency of Gorton and Denton. I didn't know it at the time, but I was becoming political without really knowing what that meant. And there was a lot of different things that were happening in my life, like a different set of challenges that a lot of us have. And again, I just started to question things. Like I questioned why our high streets are full of bookies and other areas don't have any. I questioned why like people around me weren't very politically engaged, and I just thought it's because this system is full of people who don't look and sound like us, and it's just time that we change that.
I guess I don't want to sugarcoat it. What have been the biggest challenges to kind of being a woman who's not been that involved in politics, suddenly getting involved?
I think there can be a lot of, I guess, snobbery, that if you don't understand things, that's a bad thing, but you don't understand things until you actually do it. So when I got elected as a councillor, even though like before I was elected, like I started going to council meetings, I started learning things. It wasn't until I was actually elected that I actually learned everything. But that's possible to do that. I don't think it's a bad thing that you don't have that background and that knowledge. And people can be really funny about you not having been to university or got a degree, because I think at the moment in Parliament, especially, I think 90% of MPs have at least one degree. So I think that is a bit of a challenge. Challenging the idea that those of us who didn't carry on with academic education, like we're not thick and we're not stupid, because I do think that is still held a little bit. And I think I want to like talk about that a lot of us, like a lot of things I didn't know till I got older. Like I didn't know about a lot of really important things, because really for me, like I stopped learning academically or learning about big things at school when I was like 12 or 13. Like my education in that respect kind of finished, and I was sort of like a lot of people who are from like the trades, or you feel like you're kind of written off at a very early age. And so I want there to be a bit of patience and understanding that some people, and I know I was like this, like I was really ignorant about a lot of things. But I think it's what you do after you realise, like, I need to learn something more about this. And I want there just to be a bit of more kindness and understanding that not everyone knows everything, and we're here to kind of show each other the way.
Oh, I love that. And obviously there's a big jump between joining a party, campaigning, and then going, oh, I'm actually going to run for councillor. What was it that made you go, yeah, I'm gonna get involved to stand and be a representative?
So a big thing was I had been encouraged by people around me, and that's what I see the importance of doing that now, because a lot of people who aren't political or don't feel like they have a space in politics need to be encouraged, and that happened to me definitely. And yeah, again, it was just as soon as I went to a council meeting, as soon as I saw what they looked like, as soon as I heard the comments that other councillors were saying, I just thought, there needs to be some change. Like, we need to have more people from a wider set of backgrounds in there. And that's what made me, again, in the same way, like when I was training to be a plumber and people told me I couldn't do it, I was like, brilliant, you've just given me the motivation to do it now. So it was that kind of environment where I think if I feel out of place, that's a sign that I should be there. And I definitely felt that in politics.
I love that. I don't think I've ever had this conversation with you, but public speaking, I find that's often the thing that freaks people out, or particularly, I think it's often gendered. A lot of women that I meet go, I'd love to be a councillor, but I'm not sure about speaking up in the council chamber. Have you always been a natural public speaker, or was that something you had to work on, or is it hard for you? Like, I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh, sorry. What is this?
Good.
Oh my God, stunning. Do we eat that during, or?
Yeah, it's a vegan sausage roll.
Is it? Oh my God, they're so warm.
This is where I take a moment in the podcast to say we've just been delivered some sausage rolls, some vegan sausage rolls, I need to say.
This is what I signed up for.
I want to ask you about the public speaking in a second, but first I want to tell the story about a time when I came campaigning with you and we filmed a really, really important video with Jackie. I can't remember Jackie's surname.
Oldham. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Who's an amazing campaigner who's doing this really important anti-gambling work. We filmed an interview with her where she did brilliantly. And we did some other work that day with the microphone, interviewing people. And then we went to Carr's Bolton pasties. And we filmed a video about Carr's pasties. And we finished the day and we realised the only content that was usable was for pasties.
Cars. And then we were like, well, that's not a bad thing. Like, Carr's is great.
Sorry, we were talking about public speaking and then I got distracted by the sausage rolls. So how do you feel about public speaking?
I used to feel quite nervous in the council. And I'd sort of stick to what I was saying because I hadn't ever done anything like that before. And I've kind of grown my confidence there. But I had a really exciting, honour and a privilege to be asked to open our Green Party conference in Manchester about a year and a half ago. And it was the year of the general election, so we'd won 3 more MP seats. So it was phenomenal. And to have it in Manchester, in my hometown, was amazing anyway. But then, because I was the candidate in the Greater Manchester mayoral campaign that year too, it meant everything. And so I was asked to give the speech there. And I've never spoken. I've only ever spoken really in council, which is 50 people, 60 people. But I'd never spoken to any bigger number than that. And I think there was I can't even remember how many people were there. Was there 1,000?
I think close to 1,000,
it was.
Yeah.
Unreal. I'd never written speeches that much before, and my speech was all my thoughts scribbled out when I was stuck engine off in traffic on the M6. I hadn't moved for ages and I was like, right, I'll have a go at writing this speech, and it all just came out and I didn't know how it was going to go down, and I did feel really nervous. But as soon as I set foot on that stage and I just saw all these people who were there for exactly the same reasons that I was, I felt this enormous sense of pride of what we'd achieved in Greater Manchester and beyond, and the fact that everyone was here in our home was incredible. And it just reminded me about that power of kind of connecting with each other and caring about what each other cares about. And then since I've had that positive experience, I do get a bit nervous sometimes, when I'm speaking, but broadly I'm all these people are here because we care about something, and it's just an honour to be able to stand up and say how you feel.
I love how many times in the stories you tell, there's an obstacle to overcome and you just get on with it and do it. I just think it's just really striking already, just listening to you in the last bit. When I first met you, greyhounds. Tell me about the greyhounds.
I could talk for hours about this. I think we could do a separate greyhound politics podcast.
I think you could have your own greyhound series.
Just us would listen to. But I remember that day so well when you came up to visit, and I was still quite new to the party then, and I didn't know a lot about the different people that were in it. I didn't really know anything about you, and I had this feeling where I was like, oh my goodness, the deputy leader's come in, and then instantly you just kind of put me at ease, and I felt like this is what this party is about. We might have different roles, but there's no hierarchy. We're all just kind of mucking in together. And that was the day that you met the greyhounds in the morning, and we went and had a photo with Graham, Olive and Elsie. And this is the bit that I do sometimes get upset about, and that might happen. But Graham was my first greyhound, who I got when I was living in the constituency of Gorton and Denton. And I had all these ideas in my head of even though I knew about greyhounds, I'd researched them for ages, and I was so excited. I knew in my mind I was going to get a greyhound and I was going to call him Graham, but I didn't know who that dog was going to be. And then I got him and I was like, wow, like this was not what I was expecting. Like we joked that he was a dog that really wasn't a dog. And it was funny in a lot of ways, but it was also really sad in a lot of ways because he'd been so badly mistreated. And I felt quite out of my depth, like despite trying to learn how to look after a dog and a greyhound specifically, like I really had no idea what I was doing. And it's sort of like later on in my life that I looked back on those years with him and I was like, he was really lost and I was really lost as well, but I didn't know it at the time. Like we were just kind of like in this situation where I had a few really challenging years when I lived there and we were both just kind of finding our place in the world. And we lived down the road from Bellevue, the Greyhound track, which has closed now, which I used to go and campaign at with some amazing people and they were there like week in, week out for years. And it just showed me like a few different things. Like, again, why do we live down the road from a greyhound racing stadium where people go and then end up with like gambling addictions that ruin their lives? But it also Graham taught me a lot about acceptance and about like just, yeah, letting people be who they want to be and living in peace and happiness. Because whilst he definitely had things that he needed help with, he had a lot of things that were just him. Like he was so unbelievably lazy. And it took me a while to realise, like once he overcame his fears about leaving the house, like he hated leaving the house, he hated everything about the outside world. He was also incredibly lazy, like even by greyhound standards. And so there was just stuff that I was like, I can't and shouldn't change this. Like if I can help him live a happy and safe life, like that is everything. And I think that about the people I meet, where I just think there's almost like a bit of Graham in all of us. Like we just want to be accepted and we just want to be happy and we just want to be safe. And yeah, and then I got Elsie a little bit after that. She was the opposite of him. She was absolutely gutsy. Like she just does not give a fuck about anything. She just goes out and does her own thing. And she taught me that as well. She's like, absolutely, like when you want to bark and just don't question anything about who you are. Then I got Olive and she'd also really had a hard time. And then after that, I've since got Will, Judy and Forrest, and it's just this greyhound family that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they make my life so full of joy, but they've also really taught me a lot about being patient and kind and understanding. Yeah. Oh, I do really feel like I could just, yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm crying for greyhounds. I'm also crying to get you in Parliament with that level of determination is exactly what this country needs, not just for greyhounds, but for everyone. For
every human who's ever felt like, yeah, you're not accepted or you're not a part of stuff, like, yeah, that's why we do it, isn't it?
This is not ideal in a podcast.
Should we eat these sausage rolls again?
Okay, a sausage roll break.
Oh. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry at all.
Thank you.
I've talked a fair bit about being vegan, and the animal rights aspect of this is obviously something I'm really drawn to. I think there's something really interesting though about the gambling aspect. We've got lots of Labour MPs who take donations from gambling companies. Why is that atrocious, and what's gambling doing to people's lives?
It's almost hard to describe the impact of how much harm gambling causes, because a lot of it is unknown. Like we only know the minimum amount of harm that is caused to people, and it's not just caused to individuals themselves. The wider impacts on their friends and family is enormous. Like, and I have felt that, like people that I've known and loved like that have had gambling addictions, and I think it's not. I don't want to live in a world where these gambling companies, like the chief exec of Bet365, I think there was one year where she earned almost £500 million in 1 year off the back of people's misery. But we live in a society where people rely on food banks and we have like bed poverty and people can't buy their school uniforms. And if you're someone that develops a gambling addiction because you've been targeted by these companies, there's no help really on the NHS. Like there's just no help at all. It's the work of charities, like incredible charities and organisations that are left to pick up the pieces. And it's insidious. It's absolutely everywhere. And people sort of used to say about greyhound racing, like, oh, it's a very working class like activity. And I think like fair enough, like 100 years ago when there was nothing else to do on a Friday night, I understand why people went and did it. But the world has changed so much. And now they're places where a lot of the time these greyhound stadiums are empty. They're just streaming racing like all throughout the day into betting shops, and those betting shops are in places where often more people are poor or disadvantaged, and they're being targeted by betting companies who are just lying in their own pockets. And it was Greyhound racing, so I was like, oh, I could write to my counsellors, I could do, and then I realised like how many of them are accepting donations, and I thought, well, obviously whether you believe what I'm saying or not, you can't say it because you're being funded and bankrolled by these lobbying companies. And again, I was like, I can't. When I looked at which party I would join, I did look round. Like, I'm probably from a background that has typically normally voted Labour, but I was like, I can't have any part in this because it just goes so against my morals. And I'm really proud that the Green Party, like, we don't do that. Our money it comes from members like us, like, and donors who have made their money ethically. We're not bankrolled by gambling companies and lobbyists. And that can be applied to everything, like fossil fuel companies, like all the lobbying that goes on. But it's just the gambling, like, I don't want to live in a world where like kids are watching football and they're just exposed to gambling adverts in the same way I don't want adults to watch that all the time. Like, I don't think we should have companies whose only aim in life is just to bleed people dry.
Absolutely. On a lighter note, back to the greyhounds, I think people often think that greyhounds are full of energy, but I know whenever I come around to your house, there's like 5 minutes of intense excitement that someone's in the door and then they go back to sleep.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because there's a lot of like misconceptions about them, which are understandable because I have them as well, and there's a lot of reasons why they're quite hard to home, because I think a lot of people think they need exercise, and I'm like, are you joking? Like, those greyhounds, when I go downstairs at 5 o'clock in the morning and I've got to turn that light on, they look at me like they're about to phone the police. Like, they're so angry at the thought I've dared to wake them up. And they just want like, yeah, they just want fuss and love and a full belly at night. I think that's what all of us want, a roof over our head and a full belly. But yeah, they are very funny, and they've all got their own individual traits. And they are putting the shift in on these campaigns. Like, they're coming out, they're doing half an hour an action day, and then they're going home and spending the rest of the day in bed.
They were howling this morning.
They were, yeah.
Like, why are we in this park again?
Again, in the mud.
And so then you're elected to a council, then you become the leader of the Green Group in the council. And then you start making social media videos, which obviously your profile in the last couple of weeks has, for some reason, noticeably increased. But even then, it was already starting to build. I think lots of people, particularly on the left, were going, oh, there's this really interesting person who's doing these videos. And you did a video recently about the flags that were being hung up on lampposts, and we'll probably insert the sound here of that video because I think it's good for people to hear.
So these flags, I'll say this, that took effort. Those flags go for miles. They're all evenly spaced. They're all the same height. And I know from working up a ladder, like fitting gutters and boiler flues and whatnot, like that is not easy. And so if you're using your time and your tools and your practical skills because you want your country back, please come and join the rest of us who are actually trying to get our country back. Come and volunteer at our monthly clean-ups. Come and join the gardening group. Come and fix the broken fencing that needs repairing. Come to the community arts centre that helps so many people but that always needs volunteers. Like, come and do all of those things that will actually get our country back. Because if you've got the time, the tools and the skills, and at the moment you're just putting flags up, please give your head a little wobble and then come and join the rest of us who are actually trying to get our country back.
I know that immigration is something you've been very, very vocal on. Why is it so important, particularly to have a white working class voice speaking out for a compassionate approach to migration?
I think there's so many reasons why I felt really strongly about immigration, and why I think there's been like this massive void that's opened up that has meant divisive politicians have been able to step into. And I think because in the north, like, I grew up in Bolton and I lived most of my life in Bolton, a town like a lot of places where you're kind of made to feel like it's a bad thing coming from somewhere like that, and I've not always been proud about it. I think sometimes I've probably been a bit disparaging about coming from there because I've been made to feel like it's bad to be from a town like Bolton. Now I'm the total opposite. Like, I'm so proud of my roots. Cars Pasties, another shout out. But places like Bolton have been affected much more by austerity than a lot of places. The north was hit much harder by austerity. And we've seen the impacts of immigration, and people, when they're struggling and they're being fed lies by sections of the media and they see their communities maybe look a bit different, I think without honest politicians telling the truth, it's easy to believe those lies. And Bolton did take a higher number often of people with refugee status. And I saw there what happened when companies like Serco and Britannia make absolutely millions out of government contracts. But towns like Bolton, it's like charities, churches, mosques, community groups who are left to pick up the pieces. And at the bottom of all that is communities who feel like something maybe is a bit unfair, and people in the system, the immigrants who come here, who are not treated like humans. And it's always been about showing that white working class communities what reform might think we are. We're not racist, and I accept that goes on. I won't deny that happens. But I'm really proud that I've come from somewhere where I've seen immigration is a really good thing. I lived in the constituency, which has roots Irish communities that moved here in the 60s and 70s that shaped a lot of the culture there. The High Street is amazing because it's bustling with all these different cultures. And that's a really positive thing. And I wouldn't change that for the world. But I want to say that for all of those people who have been made to feel like immigration is the root of all the problems, there is another way to think about stuff, and it's a way of looking and thinking the NHS is broken not because of immigration, it's because it's been underfunded and billionaires are getting richer and richer. And I want to just be really proud of the fact that I'm always trying to do better. I'm always trying to be more vocal. I don't always get stuff right, but I want to defend our communities, which are full of people from everywhere. Like me, I always say, whether you've lived in Greater Manchester all your life like I have, or whether you moved here yesterday, this place is your home, you are one of us. And I don't want to let anybody try and rip that apart, because that is the very fabric of my home, and that's really at threat at the minute. And I think it is important for white working class communities to stand up and say that, because maybe I've not always done a good enough job at saying that. I'm learning, I'm trying to do better. But our struggles with our neighbours may be different in different ways, but we struggle together and we stick up for each other, and that's what makes me really proud to be from Greater Manchester.
Hey Zack, guess what? Ecotalk has tripled the number of customers that it's got in just the last 6 months. Now, that's got to come down to the fact that when people are paying their mobile phone bills, they like helping nature. Of course, they like the service too. They've got the best network coverage in the UK. It's powered by green energy. And when they engage with our customer service, guess what? Well, that's powered by real people. Yes. Martin, Susan, Nemisha have all contacted Trustpilot and said that making that switch was much easier because they were speaking to those real people. And of course, we're very excited because we've got more land. We're going to be doing more restoration, more rewilding, more replanting. We're going to be making the UK a much better place for wildlife. So why not join us on Ecotalk? Just go to ecotalk.co.uk/boldpolitics and we'll see you there.
Something I find really refreshing, you've done it in this conversation a lot, and I hope I do it too, which is you've said, I don't always get it right, or I'm always working on it and learning and improving. And it really strikes me we don't hear that a lot in politics. How has it been to be under such intense scrutiny at the moment in the spotlight, but also kind of be learning at the same time?
Yeah, it is hard, because I'm only recently in the last few years using words like left and right. I don't before you're political, and a lot of my friends who are not political, we don't always talk like that. But I do think there is a much more of an issue about the left. I think people say it a lot, the left attacking each other more, and it stops us coming together. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be better and you shouldn't challenge each other and say you need to do this, but I did feel I was I'm now, sometimes I've been at a point where I've thought, when I wasn't saying anything, I didn't have this stress. And sometimes it's been, I think, from angles where people aren't understanding that we're all maybe learning. And I want there to be that patience and that understanding, because I know how it feels to not know about important issues. And it's not because I don't care, it's just because I don't know about them. And maybe my language isn't always right, and I want to do better, and I need help from people, and I appreciate when people point it out. But then I also think sometimes it can go a bit heavy on how perfect we need to be. And I was at a panel on trans liberation in Leeds just before Christmas, and I sat next to Jenny, one of our wonderful counsellors, and she spoke really powerfully about not letting people get away with stuff they shouldn't. Like there's a really clear line, like I said it before, about like, you know, not accepting racism or bigotry or hatred, but about just being a bit kinder to each other if we're not quite getting things right. Because having that environment where people are worried to say something means that often people don't end up saying something at all. And I found that really refreshing, and it was really empowering, because I was like, I know I'm going to get stuff wrong, but as long as people know I'm really trying to do it from the right place, that feels really important.
Totally. And I want to get onto Gorton and Denton in a second. Just zooming out, though, something I really observed, so this was just before you were selected, Gorton and Denton was announced as a by-election, and the media constantly asked me questions about Gaza and Palestine, as if this was suddenly going to become an issue for us now, because the constituency has, I think it's a 30% Muslim demographic. And the question to me seemed absurd, because our party for a long time has been talking about Gaza and Palestine, more widely about international human rights. So this isn't something you've just begun speaking about. You've been speaking about it for a long time. Why is it so important that any of us with a platform right now speak up for the Palestinians?
I think because we can see when one group of people is being targeted and dehumanised and oppressed, that can happen to any group. And I think if our government is so willing to play a part in that, that's a worry for us all because of what it might mean for us. But more than that, it feels like if something is only happening to one person, like that's enough of a reason for us all to stand up. And I really didn't know about Palestine and Gaza. I'm going to be really honest. Like I sometimes felt like these issues are really complex. Like they go back like so long, and they do. Like the roots of what is happening now, like has gone back for decades. And sometimes that can be a bit difficult to get your head around. But then I was like, but I see what's in front of me, in front of my own eyes. I see what's happening now, and I know that's a reason to stand up and say something. And I've done that like in council. I remember that was one of the hard moments I had. Like I feel like, yeah, I'm probably going to get quite emotional about this as well, because we had emotion about Palestine and Gaza, and we'd got a lot of criticism from other parties about it, and people had turned up to like jeer at us from the upstairs, and as I stood up, people were hissing at me, and I was like, and I was really scared. I was really scared to do it. I was like, I'm going to get so much abuse, and then I just thought, like, the feeling that I've got now of doing this is absolutely nothing compared to the people in Gaza who are going to sleep under a sky of bombs like raining down on them at the hands of the Israeli government. And so that was that bit where it's like, of course this is difficult for me, but it's absolutely nothing in comparison to what other people are suffering. And so much is just about doing the right thing and trying to use your voice and trying to use whatever platform you've been given, trying to learn a bit more about things and trying to speak out.
And while we're in depressing subjects, and I promise we'll get lighter again in a moment, but I want to talk about violence against women and girls, because I know this is an issue that's incredibly important to you. And rather than me coming up with kind of a faux question, why is it important to you? Or what do you want to say about women and girls?
Yeah, I think this ties into a lot of the immigration stuff and why I feel quite strongly about it, because I've cared about this for as long as I can remember, really. And again, I didn't realise how much this fed into my politics, but when I was a bit younger, one of our friends was murdered by her boyfriend, and I remember the reaction to that then, and how a lot of the reaction amongst a lot of us was quite wrong, like how we responded or made us feel like there was a lot of like victim blaming in that, in a way that kind of shaped, I think, a lot of people how we think about stuff. And it's only as I've got older and I've started to question really what happened there. But I don't think you need an experience like that to make you see that gender-based violence is a huge issue in this country, and no politician seems to be taking it seriously at all. And I've met so many victims and survivors of abuse and gender-based violence who just need someone to listen to them and need someone to actually start speaking up when they've got a position to do that. And I work in a really male environment, and I see so many good men around me who are absolutely wonderful humans, but I see the way that we're socialised differently from a really early age. And I used to almost stick to this idea, like, I'm just the same as these men, like we're all, and I look back and I'm like, we're not the same, like we're brought up really differently. Society shapes us into entirely different people in a way that I don't think it should. I see a lot of the men around me really struggle with a lot of emotions and feelings and having to try and support each other. Like it's an interesting thing I've sort of noticed over the last few years, like as men have absolutely been encouraged to speak to each other and share their feelings, but they're not brought up to be able to like help each other. And that's really, really sad. And I think there's just this, like, when I think about gender-based violence and I think about how the men and boys in our society are being raised, it's one of those issues where I think my feminism, I realised more recently, like, it includes everyone who's screwed over by the patriarchy. And that's the male colleagues I work with, like, they're screwed over by it too. But I think it comes out in a much more extreme way of violence against women and girls, where it is a result of us accepting things in our society that we shouldn't do and not having politicians who care because they're too busy thinking about other things. We've seen recently Keir Starmer and Peter Mandelson, like two people who, it's just powerful men looking after each other, but they'll go out, Keir Starmer will go out and say, like, my priority is gender-based violence, like, I care about violence against women and girls. And I think, but how can you, like, when you're surrounded by these people who are doing absolutely appalling things? And we need more people with that lived experience in positions in Parliament, because that's the only way that we're going to change things. And just coming back to immigration, I'm so tired and fed up of being someone who's used to further that hatred against particularly people seeking asylum, but anyone from an immigrant background generally, because it's just the scapegoating that is totally unnecessarily. And the longer we talk about that, the less we talk about the actual causes of violence against women and girls.
Yeah, I agree. And it always strikes me how is this not a priority? Like, even if women and girls was a small minority of the country, as you said before, actually, in relation to Palestine, like, if one person's being injured, we should speak up about it. But actually, this is over 50% of the country that this is affecting. And when I think compared to the amount of conversations we have about the small boats, which is a tiny thing in the country, and obviously people deserve respect and compassion, but it's just amazing that this conversation is quite rare.
And that's just where we've been going badly wrong. And people, I probably have faced criticism because it's like, oh, you always talk about this. And I'm like, yeah, but 3 women a week are murdered by a partner or an ex-partner. How can we not talk about that? How is that not, how do we just accept that happens? If 3 people a week were dying in a plane crash, people would be saying something. But why do we just accept that this is just part of, and it's that assumption, like, oh, don't worry about, like, you're not going to get murdered or raped by someone on the street. And it's like, no, I know I'm more likely to be faced that by someone who's living in my own home. Like, how is that okay? Like, the sentencing for crimes that are committed if it takes place in the home is lower than outside. And we've got a Prime Minister who's supposedly from a criminal justice background. Why is this not at the top of his radar?
Yeah, really, really well put. And then just before we get to Gorton and Denton, you also ran for Mayor of Manchester. I was about to say you didn't win. That sounds a bit brutal, just in case you didn't know. But yeah, you gave Andy Burnham a very good run. And it's just there's something kind of deeply poetic about the fact that Andy Burnham later comes into this conversation. Something I really remember, though, during that campaign that I think didn't necessarily got national attention, I think it should. Andy Burnham did something that particularly bothered you on a personal level. Do you want to tell me about it?
Yeah, so we'd had a bit of a conversation. It's more of a local issue where he was coming up with a qualification, I think it was called the MBAC, which is geared towards getting, like, younger people into trades and more, like, manual and practical backgrounds. And I was always quite critical because I feel like it's an area where politicians are really out of touch. So they don't understand that the reason why people aren't getting into these jobs isn't because of what the qualification's called. It's because these jobs, like, we're looked down on and not paid enough. And it was just, I could see there, I was like, this is why we're not getting anywhere, because politicians with decision-making power, like, don't understand what's actually going on. We had a radio interview at the Eccles Cake Factory, actually, where I'd been asked about it and I said pretty much what I've just said then. And then the next day he went on and he, like, lumped me in all together, and he was like, they only care about university routes in education. And I heard it, and I was working in someone's loft and I had the radio on and I was absolutely fuming, and I must have been fuming out loud because the customer popped her head up and was like, is everything all right up there? And I was like, well, how do I explain to this woman, like, actually it's not all right. I'm really angry about what I've just heard on the radio, because I thought, how dare he turn around and say that I only care about university education, where throughout the whole campaign I'd been really proud about saying, like, this is the job I do, like, I want more people to do it, like, there is another alternative to university, both routes are great, but let's try and focus on this for a little bit because we've got a skills shortage. And a few people were saying to me, like, that's just politics and, like, that's what politicians do. And I was like, it shouldn't be what we do. We shouldn't be that willing to just shit on someone else because you disagree with them, that you're just going to lump them in and misrepresent something. That's what he'd done. He'd told a story and included me in it in a way that I shouldn't have been. And this is what you always hear people say, and I get it. Well, that's what politicians do. That's just what politics is like. And I'm like, I want to change that, because I wouldn't do that with my friends. I wouldn't do it with people I know. So why do we do it with politics? Like, we need to be honest and tell the truth, and accept that when we get stuff wrong, we need to say, like, I'm sorry. But I never actually said that, like, publicly.
Right.
Which, again, I would maybe have just had a bit more respect for. And this is what we want to change, and we're going to change it by having more normal people from different backgrounds in it.
So Gorton and Denton is announced. I'm really proud of the selection process, that actually it was you, Faisal and Sarah, who had an online hustings, and you were selected. And it's been really nice to see Faisal and Sarah out with you campaigning. I think that's a big difference between us and political parties. Like, we really do rally behind the person. What was the day of the announcement like, just on a personal level?
It was absolutely bonkers. And my life just changed like that. So we had the hustings that finished at like 9:30, and then it was just straight onto all these calls. And I think before I talk too much about the announcement, I want to say exactly what you just said about Faisal and Sarah, who are unbelievable. Like, they've been out relentlessly campaigning that in the office. They're out doing stuff. Like, Sarah brought cakes in. Faisal was out with me yesterday, like, introducing me to people. And that is different to other parties, because when I was at the hustings, I saw it was us three. I thought, whatever happens, like, we've got someone good here. And I'd have done the same with both of them. And that's what makes us different, that we're all in it together. So that's been incredible. And it's so exciting to see what happens next with the three of us. But yeah, the day of the announcement was bonkers. I thought I was just going to be late to college. So I told my tutor, I was like, I might just be in a bit later tomorrow, like, I'll keep you posted. And then obviously when I realised how much excitement and how much of a spotlight was on us, I was like, I texted him in the morning, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be in today. Because it was just unbelievable. We had the announcement, didn't we, at the community centre in Longsight. And then it was just back-to-back media. Like, everybody wanted to talk to us, because I think the media is seeing, like,
they wanted to talk to you, Hannah.
I was just being polite, Zack. We did our little Q&A together, though, didn't we? We were like Anson Deck. And
we didn't send anyone in the jungle.
No, we didn't. No.
Maybe we could send Matthew Goodwin.
Yeah, I think he's. Yeah, well,
it's probably what he'll do when he loses.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that always seems to happen, doesn't it? Washed up people make a lot of money out of TV appearances. Anyway, the rest of us just go back to work.
I've encouraged us to be shady now.
You're gonna have to edit this down so it's like 1 minute long. It's just us eating a sausage roll. Anyway. Yeah, I actually had my plastering clothes with me, because I thought I was going back to college, and I would have done. I'm used to balancing everything in life. Like, that's what so many of us do. Like, whether we're in politics or not, like, if you live here, you're used to juggling lots of different things. But yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah, so we were at the Pakistani Community Centre where we had the launch, and then we were like out and about taking photos, like going meeting things, did a few bits of filming. We had all these journalists wanting to talk to us. And I just kind of thought, this is it now. Like, my life has changed, but I wouldn't change any of it for the world.
And what really struck me at that was every single journalist I spoke to, or I should say pretty much every single journalist I spoke to, commented how brilliant you were. And you rarely get that from journalists. They're normally just going through the motions. But I think, I don't know what journalists' political backgrounds are, and nor should I. Like, that's a good journalist. But pretty much everyone commented on how present and how refreshing and how authentic you were.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm not very good at taking compliments, so
it was also a weird question. That. I'm like, do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I am amazing. But what is interesting, and I'm learning this more, because obviously it's been a quick journey, but I'm learning so much along the way, is people do keep saying, like, you're so relatable and you're so, and I think I'm no different to most of the people that are just walking down the street. But what is rare is that any of us ever managed to get into politics. And that's the difference, where I'm like, I'm ten a penny out there. Like, you can find loads of different people like me who are rooted in my community, who work hard, because that's what the vast majority of people do. But in politics, it is quite rare, I think, to be human. Like, I think here in the Green Party, like, we're often the only ones that are, because we're honest, and people don't expect that. And we just make it clear that, like, we're just trying to work hard. And you don't really see that in any other place. And so I do think that is the difference. I think if we can open the door in the next few weeks, which is something I've always tried to do in politics, if I can get in my foot in the door and, like, force it open for everyone else to come through, politics will just be filled with normal, relatable people who live normal lives, who really care about stuff.
I think it's such a point well made. I'm not going to say there's no other like human politicians and other political parties. I know some of them and they're wonderful and I'm even friendly with them. But we probably are talking about a handful that I could sit with and just have a normal human conversation like this with them. There's something particular about politics that seems to attract people. It's almost the opposite of who you think it should attract, who just aren't able to hold a normal human conversation that isn't either deeply political or isn't very guarded or isn't, you see it when you talk to people and they are looking around the room for who the most important person in the room is.
And that is something we don't, we can't, we need to change. We can't have people who are just there for their own ego just because they see being an MP as like a high status. Like, of course it is because it's an honour to do it, but it's not a career step. It's not, I think that is different really here in the Greens. And I think members see that. I'm proud of our selection process. Like we see the people who we want in positions, and often it's the people who don't want something that are the people that should do it. And that's why I'm always encouraging people, like, have you thought about becoming a councillor? They'll say exactly the same things that I did. Oh, I don't know if I could do that. I'm not very good at X, Y, Z. And I think if you've got that level of self-awareness, you're in. Like, that's who we need. The
people I worry about are the opposite. And I do see this even in the Green Party, people who join and they say, ready to be an MP, off I go. And like, confidence is a good thing. I'm not someone who's unconfident, but I think having a bit of self-doubt and self-awareness, as you put it, is a pretty important quality.
Yeah, and you never want to lose that. And again, I think a lot of us in our backgrounds and our jobs, like, we do that anyway. Right. I know I never want to be 100% confident at anything. When I'm working on gas and I'm not sure about something, I need to go and check it. Yeah. I don't want that level of like, I know everything, I know best, I'm just going to bulldoze my way through it, even if I'm not sure.
Please don't bulldoze with gas around. I'm not a plumber, but I think that's probably not a good thing.
No, it definitely isn't.
And during the 2024 election, you visited every single target seat. So everywhere that we won an MP, you and all the greyhounds all visited. And so how does it feel now to have pretty much the entire country coming into Gorton and Denton alongside the locals and being like, we're going to go get you elected?
I'll just finish eating this. That is, I said this morning, because I realised all these faces that were just coming up that I was seeing of people from across the country who, when I was campaigning in all of the target seats, I was very lucky to be able to do that. I never did it because I expected anything in return. Like, I did it because I believed and I know that we should have more Green MPs. But it has been really beautiful to see people like come back and be like, and who just recognise how much I care about something, how much I believe in it, how hard I work, and they're showing up and saying like, we've got you back. And it's brilliant alongside people, as you mentioned, people who live in the community, who live in the constituency, who've never been political at all, who come in and getting involved because they know there's so much at stake. But it is incredible. It feels like that thing about having everyone in your front room. Like, I feel like everybody's come to mine and we're going to sit down with a pasty and then go out and do some campaigning. I should add, so the greyhound selection that I've got now, the group, it's only Olive that went to all the places because I lost Elsie a few months back. But we promise whatever happens, they are going to rep everyone in Parliament. There will be a day when we get a photo of them outside when we win. When we win this constituency of Gorton and Denton, the greyhounds will absolutely play their part and have a picture outside Parliament.
And we've just come from the park, as I said, and the speech I just gave was about the fact that I was really appreciative of all the people who had come around the country. I think it's also really important, though, to talk about those people from Gorton and Denton. And I met a couple this morning. I met a few people this morning, but particularly a couple who said to me they'd never been involved in politics before. They would never have dreamt of joining a political party. And actually what this by-election and what you specifically have done is not only got them to join the Green Party, to turn up on a Sunday morning, and now they're going out door knocking. And I mean, that's a pretty high barrier to engagement. How does that feel and why is that important?
It's so important because I remember how that felt. I remember how it felt when I lived there and we had a by-election that was called that then didn't happen because there was Theresa May's like snap election. But I just remember that feeling of everything being at stake. And I think when there's a by-election and the spotlight is really on you, it shows you our political system in terms of voting is very broken, but it does show you how powerful your vote is when everybody's watching what's going to happen. But here I think the difference is there's a lot to win, but there's a lot to lose. And that fear is really amongst people. And that's what we're really feeling at the moment. People are really scared about what's going to happen if reform get in, what that means for a really diverse and beautiful constituency. And people are really proud of our community and don't want it to turn into somewhere that excludes people even more. And it will do under a reform MP. And it's that pride in your community, and we see it, like I saw it when we were out on Longsight, in Longsight where there's these two guys for hours just working their way down the A6, picking up bags of leaves because they just care about where they live. And like, they'll have been doing that for years, but now there's a different way of showing how we care about our community. And over the next few weeks, that way is turning up and campaigning for hope, because there is a lot at stake and there's a lot to lose, but there is so much to gain as well.
We did an interview yesterday. I won't keep talking about interviews we did, otherwise people will be like, just go listen to them. But the interviewer said, and I don't think she was being sarcastic, it really confused me. She said, I've got friends who live next door constituency, and they're really confused about whether to vote Labour or Green. And to me, that was a conversation we're just not having on the doorsteps. Actually, we're not finding Labour voters. We're finding people who might be voting Reform, and that's worrying. But actually, it just feels like the Labour vote has utterly collapsed. Now, I don't often advertise attack lines, but it's such an absurd one. I'm going to advertise it. Lucy Powell, the deputy leader of Labour, wrote a letter to me to suggest we were in somehow splitting the vote. And I'm just like, literally, has she knocked on a door in Gorton and Denton because we're not finding Labour voters?
Yeah, and I think that suggestion of splitting the vote suggests that that only happens if you're like together or on the same page, and Labour are like so far off the page. I don't know how you could suggest that we're splitting any sort of vote when they don't represent the people or the things that we care about. They abandoned their commitment to working people and working class communities a long time ago. So the suggestion of that splitting the vote between us, Labour and Reform, we're three entirely different parties. And the same as you, I'm like, I am so surprised. I don't think I've had to like ask a single person why they're still considering voting Labour, because I genuinely haven't found one. And I would say, if I was having different conversations, I would just say that I'm not. Like, everybody, the first thing they want you to know is I'm not voting Labour ever again. And that's really interesting. It makes complete sense. But even in the face of Reform, people know there's a credible option now, and it's us. And so they don't have to think about voting tactically to keep Reform out, voting Labour. Like, I know Labour are trying to peddle that. They know that it will be worse if they lose to us than Reform. That's why they're trying to take chunks of us in that way. But voters on the doorstep, like, people aren't thinking like that. People are just so fed up and exhausted about having to vote tactically. Like, we just want to vote with our guts and vote for a party that is going to work hard and going to represent the area and all of its strengths, instead of just keep voting Labour to keep Reform out, or stick to the old party system that doesn't work anymore. But I mean, great, thank you to Labour for doing so much of the work for us, because you've managed to take that bit of the conversation out, and that conversation now is just us talking about what we're going to do, and that's what voters want to hear about.
I do want to tell you my nightmare scenario, though, which I've not told you in person, which is probably not ideal that I'm doing it and broadcasting it to the nation.
Great.
But my nightmare scenario, and I can genuinely see this happening, so I think it's important to name it, is where Labour do disastrously, which is what I think they will, but not disastrously enough that they take enough of a chunk of the vote that Reform get through, because actually Labour effectively split the vote. Now, this is a conversation I've not had a lot, because I hate this conversation about splitting the vote for the exact reason that you just said. But what can we do about that? What can we do about making sure that people who are voting Labour weirdly to stop Reform, even though there is no way that Labour are going to win this contest, how do we make sure that we're getting those people to vote Green?
People voting for us and having a Green MP and keeping Reform out, you win two things there. You reject politics of hate and division, and you end up with someone who just really gives a shit. And that's what people want. Even if we disagree on stuff, my friends disagree with me on loads of stuff politically, but we respect people that we trust, and that means telling the truth and working hard. And so if anybody is considering voting Labour at the minute, I get it. I get the temptation to vote tactically, to think about what the outcome of your vote might be, but vote with your gut and vote for the people who care about you.
Amazing. And I'm watching Prime Minister's Question Time, and Hannah Spencer is on the green benches, and I'm about to get emotional again. I was just asking a question. You step up and you ask a question. When you're an MP, you can't do everything all at once. There's kind of has to be a few things that you focus on to really make your name on and get that change done. Do you already have a sense, and these don't have to be absolute commitments because let's get you in there first, but are there maybe 2 or 3 things where you think actually as an MP, those are the things I really want to focus on?
So I think we touched on things like gender-based violence, violence against women and girls, scapegoating of migrants and people seeking asylum. But more broadly, and it's a huge issue, inequality. And that comes in many forms, and we see it play out in many forms. And something I really want to try and make a difference on is fuel poverty. So in Gorton and Denton, we have higher than average rates of fuel poverty. And that is something that affects like all ages and all incomes. Like everybody gets hit by that, but it disproportionately affects people who are from poorer backgrounds or vulnerable people. And it's our disabled communities and older groups in our communities who are in situations where, you know, like you think about some of the pensioners in our society who've like paid into a system all their life, and then they're now faced with not even being able to have the heating on, freezing in their own homes because we live in some of the leakiest homes in Europe, and because no government has ever sensibly looked at the issue with common sense and said there is a way to fix this that will make things cheaper for people and make people more comfortable. I've worked on a lot of the government schemes that have happened before about insulating people's houses, and I'm absolutely like, I cannot get my head around how unregulated they are. Like there's a lot of fraudulent companies that it's just been a license to print money. And because no politician has ever looked and thought, how can we do this better? It's just been a bit of a, let's chuck a lot of money at this. And if it doesn't work, well, it doesn't matter. And it comes under the thing I talk a lot about too, about why we need more people in politics. Because I know tradespeople like me and the people who've been doing it for decades have been saying for years, we are fitting central heating systems. Whatever this heating source, half the heat's just going out of the house. How does that make any sense? No one's been listening to us. No one's been letting us into the rooms where decisions are made. And that we can change. We can change that on day one when I start talking about fuel poverty, but we'll change it when every single person in this country looks and thinks, I can do that. I could maybe be a politician. I could get involved in politics because I might not have been to uni and got a political degree, but I've got knowledge like from my own area that I can feed into. And yeah, I think that you can apply that to a lot of different issues. People living in poverty more generally. Again, we have high rates of people living in insecure rented accommodation. There's things that we need to talk about there. But I really don't want to live in a world where people are choosing, we say it a lot, but choosing about putting the heating on or putting food on the table. Often people can't afford to do either. We have one of the richest and fastest growing economies in Manchester in the whole world, and yet we live somewhere where I go and I've been to do a gas check on someone and they've not had their boiler on for a year because they can't afford it. And I just think, I don't want to live in a world like that. I don't want to live in a world where people are having to make those, and they're not making choices because they're forced on them. It's not a choice at all. And we can change that. We can change that because we're a party that's not lobbied by the fossil fuel industry. I have no vested interest in sorting that other than I'm a decent person that cares about people. That's my interest. Yeah.
I think I might start voting Green.
Right, moved to Gorton and Denton before.
So this is weird because I'm interviewing you, but I also want to say that without putting too much pressure on you, this election does feel like the battle of the soul of the nation. I think it will be the most important by-election in this whole parliamentary term. Most importantly for the people of Gorton and Denton. But actually, if Reform did win an MP there, the message that would send to the rest of the country and the message that would send the world, frankly, about British politics, I'm saying no pressure. But the alternative to that, the message it would send both in Gorton and Denton, but to the entire country, to have a progressive woman, a working class woman, a plumber in Parliament, and also the rejection of the politics that Reform are putting forward, I think would say so much. So with that all being said, if someone's listening to this and thinking, I should probably help if I can, what can people do?
Firstly, I agree with everything that you've just said about how historic this could be in a really bad way, potentially, but also in an absolutely amazing way. Like, we can set the course of British politics over the next few weeks. I have written down the website to get involved. It's gorton-denton.greenparty.org.uk. Or search online and you'll find it. And on there's tons of ways to get involved because we need people out having conversations with people, knocking on doors, delivering leaflets, but there is space for everybody to do that. I'm talking to you at home. If you're watching and thinking or listening, what can I do to get involved? There is a multitude of ways that you can come and help. Come and help with lots of different things. We've got a WhatsApp community that you can join. We've got email updates that you can find out about. And it'll be the place to go after we win and we get our first Northern Green MP. You'll hear about how to help too. If you're thinking about coming and you've never done anything like this before, you are not on your own. There are hundreds of people that have been turning up on their own or coming with a friend and they've never done it before. You will get all the training and support that you need to be able to do this. And some things sound intimidating. Door knocking sounds intimidating. But I've had amazing conversations with people constantly when I get to go out and listen to people. And the biggest thing that people are telling us now is, I'm just grateful that someone's come and knocked on my door and listened to me. And you can be the person that has the chance to do that. So I'm going to read this out again. Gorton-Denton.greenparty.org.uk. There's a lot of dots and dashes in there, but when you get there, I promise it'll be worth it. So come and get involved.
Yeah, it's so important. I often talk about door knocking and leafleting, but we also know that whether someone has a disability or they're quite shy or whatever the reason is, that there's a range of things. Almost any skill anyone has, no matter how unique, in fact, even more so if unique, can probably help your campaign right now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, the more the merrier.
I want to end with something actually just really personal, which is we have a mutual friend who's Asma. So Asma founded the Muslim Greens and joined the Green Party a few years ago. And she said that she joined the Green Party over Palestine, but actually she stayed because of the environmental policies. And obviously I often talk about there's no environmental justice without racial, social and economic justice too. And I think Asma just encapsulates that in everything that she does. And she was the person who introduced you when you were selected.
I'm going to get emotional now. Yeah, sorry.
How does it feel to have Asma supporting you?
Yeah, it's amazing because Asma, like, when I met her, she had a bit of a similar, like, journey with me. Like, we were both joining and then suddenly we were both doing loads. Like, she co-founded Muslim Greens. She was absolutely a huge part of our motions on Palestine. Like, that woman does not stop. And, like... yeah, and she just gets me, and she gets that thing where I'm like, I don't always do things right, I don't always know what to say, but she just understands that, like, I'm trying, and it's phenomenal because she supports me in so many different ways. I mean, last week I turned up at her house and she was like, I need to iron those trousers. I literally just stood by her front door I was inside while she ironed my trousers. And so it's that thing of like those small things that mean a lot. But then she's also the person when I'm like, my head's about to fall off, like I don't understand this, I'm trying to get my head around that, like whatever. And she's just like, just be yourself, like just go out there and do it. You care and people know you care, and that is important. And she's always encouraged me in lots of different ways. And actually I wanted, when I was asked to do the speech in Greater Manchester at the conference, I wanted to split it with her, and she understandably was like, I don't want to do it, like I don't want to speak, and I have sort of like gently tried to encourage her since. And then when she gave that speech on the day of the announcement, I was like, she's hilarious. Like, she's so funny to make all those jokes. She's talking really passionately about everything she cares about. And now I've seen that, I'm like, this is phenomenal, because I know that we need to get her as our next MP, I think.
I was just saying, I'm looking forward to the day when I go visit with Hannah Spencer, MP, to go get Asma elected
Yes,
too.
exactly. Yeah. And it is that thing of kind of lifting each other up and and our party is full of people who were just there to help each other out and to help with things that maybe we're struggling with. And yeah, I'm so grateful to have these people around me right now, because I couldn't do any of this without people like Asma.
Thank you for being our first Green Party of England and Wales guests, and I guess good luck in the election.
Thank you so much.
And
thank you as well for everything that you've done, like on a personal level. Like, we're really good friends, and you've always encouraged me, and when I felt inadequate or like I shouldn't be in a space, like you've always really pushed me, and you do that to so many people in the party, and it's phenomenal, because I don't think I could have done a lot of this without you, so thank you.
Well, thank you, and thanks for everything that you bring every day.
Zack, final words from me. If you're paying a phone bill anyway, like nearly all of us are, of course, why not pay a phone bill that funds rewilding, reintroducing and replanting, the 3 Rs? You can even watch it happening on your phone. That's bloom scrolling, not doom scrolling. To find out more and to join the thousands of people helping British wildlife, go to ecotalk.co.uk/boldpolitics. Join the bloom scrollers and the blooming nature revolution.